that would mean that we are probably doing that right now.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all again. This is a special edition of The Table. As you can see, we have more people on. And if you have been following, you'd know that we had a very interesting discussion. And we had it first with the men, and now the ladies had theirs. But we think it's not going to be great playing on the seesaw by yourself, having to run, come down, go to the other end. So we've brought everybody together. So that way it's going to be a really great seesaw. So we heard what the men said. Yeah, we had what the women said. So this is he said, she said, and what exactly do we want to say? So rules for today, I've taken out the China. Not that I don't respect everyone, but because you can never tell if my Chinas aren't insured. So we've got the wooden plates and we've got wooden forks and knives. So we're going to play fair. We're going to play nice. And if you throw anything, that's fine. Okay. All right. So rules for today, I'm your server and also will be ably assisted by the elegant Tony. So together we will try to bring some sanity to the table. It's not going to be a buffet because it's very messy. But should you desire to pick it up with the manager, I would ask that you wait till the end and then have a word with the manager. Okay, all right. So he said, she said. We heard what the man said. Yeah. When we said, look, we talk. Social construct also. And then you also talked and you also aligned to the fact that social constructs and we had the whole identity, masculinity and all. Now we are taking the gloves off. I want to say, what exactly is it that you want to hear from the men to the ladies? And then we will respond and we will see where we go from there. All right. So ladies, shall we let you start?
Yinka has this funny smile on his face, this wily smile on his face.
I'm just curious.
So am I. So we're here now. What do you want to say? Remember, this is PG-13.
Yeah, so, I think a better way would be this. If we were back in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, yeah, what would you want to hear Adam say to Eve?
Tell me what God said before the serpent gets to me. Talk to me. Why did you talk to me?
Well, who says he didn't say those things?
Yeah, good question.
So you're assuming that she didn't hear him properly or she didn't adhere to what he said? Because if he did...
I'm not, but you're assuming that didn't happen.
Yeah, because if he did, she would have been on her guard. She would have sort of like anticipated that kind of thing might happen and she would have the right answer. She wouldn't even doubt if Adam had said.
But if you read the scripture, that particular, and we haven't started, we're just sparring. You read that particular scripture well, and we're going to do this for the next 40 plus minutes. I hope you know that. The Bible says that the devil basically marketed only one reason why she shouldn't eat that fruit. She, however, according to the scriptures, had 3 reasons, including it was pleasant to sight. It was this and it was that. You don't really, look, it was already in her. She already desired to know what this thing tasted like. There was, this shouldn't be put down to was she told, was she not told? We have to reconcile that we are all people coming into a relationship. Before we got married, after we get married, their preferences, their desires, their hopes, their ambitions. And the real question is, rather than telling me what to do and what not to do, how do you reconcile all that I am and all that I want to be? A lot of people feel they've had to chill in their perception, their identity, their passion, their dream, because they're married. How right is that? When you still have it in you to want to taste that fruit? Yes, sir.
Can we go back to the question just so I get a sense of context? Who asked the question first, and what was the question?
I wasn't answering the question. I was just, I was responding.
I know, but a lady asked the question, which I thought was really interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
But can you just repeat the question?
I said, so what do you want to hear from us?
No, not that question. The question that the lady asked.
I think it's Soluchi's question.
Oh, Soluchi's question. Soluchi, you're
Soluchi, what did you say?
Okay, so it was Samuel's question. Samuel said, if we were back at the Garden of Eden, what would you, Eve, want to Adam to tell you? We are talking about why do men not talk. So I said I would have loved Adam to tell me, like give me instructions concerning the tree so that I'll be better equipped to handle the temptation when it comes. However, Shegu gave another perspective to it, which is, I understand that in terms of that I have my own mind, I have what I want to do, I think for myself. So even if Adam had told me, you know what, God says, don't do this, in my head, I would still want to do that. So where do we reconcile individual differences, preferences, dreams when it comes to a marriage? Because everybody comes to a marriage with their minds, their own dreams and all that. So some people say, I've given up mine because of marriage. So where do we reconcile that? I think that's the context. That's where we are.
Can I say something here? Going back to the Adam and Eve analogy, I want to ask, how old were they, really?
Okay, all right, wait. Well,
they were literally born adults, right? So they hadn't really cooked, though. They hadn't cooked. They hadn't had time to be together. They hadn't understood each other. They hadn't been able to bounce off each other in a way that, that level of inquiry could have actually come in. So what did God say? What didn't he say? That whole investigation that they could have probably put forward before that incident happened. And I think that, maybe they were just a few days old or whatever, but I'm going back now to spiritual maturity and thinking sometimes the level of discourse and conversation between a couple or between men and women, so it could be between a colleague, and so not necessarily your spouse, is always built on the level of maturity, I think, that each individual possesses, and that's just my initial stipulation.
I have a very interesting observation around Bible stories and how we interpret them. Just based on what you said, Balaji, I think in some respects, and I'm not a Bible scholar, but I think in some respects, the Bible is like a DVD highlight reel.
Yeah.
So we are only presented with highlights. Okay. Yes. So for example, and again, this is random. I'm not saying this is in the Bible, but you can imagine maybe in Matthew 31, the very last verse of Matthew, it says Jesus is heading out to Samaria. And then in Mark 1:1, it says when Jesus got to Samaria. Okay, that is literally the flip of the page or the eye just scanning from the end of one sentence to the beginning. That is a highlight. Yeah. What we don't see is the however many days or hours or minutes it took for Jesus to travel from one place to another.
So I do that. Are you kidding me?
So
I'm speaking from a, obviously no one told us, do you understand, how long Adam and Eve had been together? No one, in the same way, no one tells us how long it takes to get from Samaria to, from Jerusalem to Samaria. Do you know what I mean? I know that, do you get? But what I'm saying is, I'm just sort of using that scenario to say that in a relationship, the time you spend together, learning to understand each other, and that's any relationship, even at work, taking the effort to understand your male colleague, or taking the effort to understand your spouse would definitely reflect on the way you communicate. That's essentially what I'm saying. Or taking the time or the amount of time you spend with that person would definitely reflect on the way you communicate.
The funny thing was, I wasn't even challenging that. I think for me, one of the things I will find useful in this entire conversation is how we focus on the how. Because I don't think anybody has said anything here that any one of us will disagree with.
Yeah.
But I think the most important thing is, okay, as a man, I'm looking at the situation, and then I have a woman looking at the same situation, but somehow we will see different things in that same thing.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that at the end of this situation, I can say, okay, I now know how a woman views this thing, which is different to how I'm viewing it, but more importantly, how I can get to understand that so I can engage and connect more.
Yeah.
And one of the ways I want to do that is to fight.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
You see,
My
our
role
YouTubers
here,
are almost
sorry,
waiting
Sheku,
for that.
Hold on. I am collecting boxing gloves. I am collecting knives. So everybody hand them over to me now. Right now. So that's my job here.
I'm handing you over reluctantly.
Please, just hand them over.
Knowing
Please,
that please.
In case people decide to
You
drive
see,
off.
the reason why I ask all of this is if you're asking, if we're agreeing on the how, then of course it presupposes the why. You know, why do we look at the same thing and get different things out of it?
Because we're different.
Go ahead.
MM has been waiting patiently.
MM's finger has been in the air. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I can only see 4 pictures on the grid. So please, can whoever the lead is tell me to shut up?
No, that's not going to happen.
Hi again, everyone. Okay, so I'm going back to what Samuel originally asked. He asked, what do we really want? What do we really want from the men? And I would say again and again, men think differently. Men are different from women, and I think I am fine with that. I think it makes the world beautiful to have so many differences. Where it becomes an issue is where, for example, maybe my husband, I'm looking at more of my family, my husband or my sons, where there's an issue and you're not able to articulate this or something that would make things blow up or make you have a meltdown or those kind of things, or something that would have been really important for you to communicate and you can't tell me. That's where it becomes an issue, I think, for me. So I think personally, I enjoy entering people's minds. I find ways to get information out. You don't have to tell me this in a sentence. I can read your body language. Most times I'm on the phone with my husband. I'm like, "You're watching CSI." I'm on the phone, and he's like, "Are you a detective? Do you have a camera here?" Or I'm like, "Why are you lying down talking to me? You're lying down and talking to me." He's like, "Oh my God," So I can tell the tone. Or sometimes I'm like, "You had a bad day. What's going on?" So I'm reading tones and all that. Okay, so I find ways to extract this information. So it becomes a problem when this thing could cause a meltdown, cause a problem in our marriage, or cause a problem with us as grown-ups. As I said, so my first son is 21, my second son is 17. I need to be able to enter their brains once in a while. I need to be able to find out what it is that's going on. So this is, for me, it's a skill. I spend, either we're going for walks or we're riding the bicycle, or I do silly things just to get you out of the house so we can talk. So this is where I don't want you bottling things in. Men are going through stuff that it's shocking. And if we women do not provide this safe space, okay? Sometimes there's a program for men tomorrow. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'll ask my husband sometime, you know what? Why don't you guys try and attend some of these things because even if you don't want to talk to me, sometimes it's fine. You might want to go for some of these programs where men can talk about stuff. Men are going through stuff. There's the economic challenge, where people are trying to run and raise money for school fees. And you don't want to tell your wife this all the time. I want to talk to other people. So for me, I just want the men to find ways to talk. So if it means you guys going out for drinks, for example, there are issues you can't really initially talk to your wife about, then do something about it, but don't hold it in. So that's the angle I'm coming from. So if from Samuel's question, you're asking, what do we want from the men? We don't want men exploding or taking drugs, or there's so many cases going on back home in Nigeria that men are just losing their minds. They're doing stupid stuff, like there's rape and there's so many things going on. And we're wondering, who raised you guys? Like, what was wrong with you? Don't you have a wife or a mom? Weren't you raised by a woman? Okay, so we want the men to talk. We don't want you guys exploding and making mistakes. Okay, so that's where the angle I will be coming from. So yes, so that is what I would say for men. So women, please provide safe spaces so that when men come to you or they ever have a meltdown, I watched a comedy yesterday and she said, the guy broke up with her and she started laughing. The guy broke up, she started laughing, and the guy started crying and she started laughing at him. And everybody around her was like, "You're heartless. That is so heartless. Why did you do that? Why would you do that to a human, to a man?" Okay, so women, we need to provide safe spaces so that when men ever come to us and talk, okay, maybe they've been tossed around and whatever it is. So that is my take from.
Why do we have to provide a safe space for men?
It's the same thing. I expect the same thing. I said the same thing for you. So I think sorry, it's the same thing for,
why do we have to treat them like fragile?
because I expect the same thing from them too. If I'm saying something,
sorry, I was just going to say, Soluchi had her hand up, so we're bringing some. So Soluchi, you have a couple of minutes just to say what you want to say, please.
Okay, very quick. Couple of minutes. Soluchi. Okay, good. Quick. I'm going to like merge what Balaji said and what MM said. So one is, for me, there's no one size fits all. There is no formula. Know who you are with. And MM said, communicate. Anyhow you want to communicate. We're just saying it is natural for you not to communicate, right? So know who you are with, because some women, honestly, you cannot communicate to them or with them. That's the truth. You can't. If a man tries it, he will not like what he gets back, because her understanding, you are saying something, she's understanding something else. So my point is, know who you're with and know if it is okay to communicate based on how you feel and what you want to receive, right? So, and if you choose not to communicate with her, then manage your expectations. She's not going to understand you. Manage your expectations if you choose not to communicate with her. And I'm emphasizing on know who you're with because, for example, a lot of people say women like the details. I am the opposite. Please don't tell me how you opened the door, you saw a cat. I don't even greet when you pick up the phone. Hello, how are you? No, go straight to the point. I can pick up the phone and say, I'm picking up from where I stopped. That is strange for a woman, but I don't like the details. You understand? So know who you're with. So if you're a man and you're trying to communicate your feelings to me, midway I might get irritated in the sense that, can you get to the point? For me, I would like you to say, you know what? I'm tired. I don't want to prod you to bring out what's inside you. And that's why I said, know who you're with, so that you can decide how or if you want to communicate with that person. There is no one size fits all. And whatever your choice is, please manage your expectation. Don't say, my wife does not understand me, my wife does not listen to me, or whatever it is. You have made your choice. Manage your expectation. There's no, you can't fit it all. That's what I want to say.
Okay, I want to pick up from what Yinka suggested, right? This is not as straightforward as it sounds.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about that.
It's not.
It's not. When we were talking about communicating, etc., Balaji was speaking earlier, my first thought was, you can get to know someone for the rest of your life and still not really get to know them. I was wondering, how much time should be spent in courtship, for instance, getting to know the people that the person you want to marry. A lot of people use courtship and dating as an opportunity to basically impress and not ask the hard questions and not prepare for a life together. And then they complain about being surprised when they're married, and to some degree, I feel that they just skip some processes in the name of preparing for a one-day occasion, which marriage is not. So there is that. There is also recognizing that there are certain scenarios. Like I was speaking with Usoro earlier. Hopefully he can join us soon. And it was mentioned that Richie has gone off, one of our panelists, with his wife to take some time. And I thought that was really cool. And then we started talking about summer holidays from there. And he started saying, do they realize that if the objective is to be with the family, there are more affordable options? And we got into this whole discussion on why on earth you need to do summer holiday in the Jandong or in the American. And the whole pressure of that,
yes,
that we may think is subtle, or
It's not.
the schools we want our kids to go to. Whether or not it is tailored for the kind of person they are, we don't want to know. It has to be the best school, and that usually comes at a price tag. And then we nosedived into control. And these are some of the issues, like what I'm trying to say from Inka is this, that no woman wants to be on a runaway train. You want the feeling that there's a driver at the wheel. There is some kind of control. And at the same time, there's the question of, must everything I'm going through be discussed with you? And does that necessarily have to mean we are not talking? So there's so
now
many
you are talking.
Yes, I mean, I don't need to tell you everything. I'm sorry. And that doesn't mean we're fighting.
But Shegun, that is one of the reasons why I was so glad that we're actually having this now. Ladies, is that the case?
I want to know everything. For me, it's intimacy. I want to know. And that's why I said, know who you're with. What is intimacy to me is that you are naked before me. And I mean completely naked.
Yeah, Solution, I respect that. I respect that you want to know. And I respect that that is who you are. But that doesn't make it right. You see, we need to demarcate between what is me and what is right. My truth and the truth. No, I'm serious here. Or else there will not be room for growth. Where do you grow if you're already set? If you're 40 and you're set, that means you'll be 50 and the same person. If you're 30 and you're all wise, that means you'll be 40 and you have learned nothing in 10 years. So there has to be growth. And does that growth include the possibility that I may need to update, upgrade, adapt, not because it is compromising on who I am, but because it is demanded in growth? A lot of people say, sorry, let me just conclude. A lot of people say women don't listen. A lot of men say that to men, that they just don't listen. Once they have a mindset about something, there is nothing you're going to say that will change the way they view it. And when you say, well, this is who I am, I like intimacy, I like details, you're already telling me you're not ready to listen to another version. You're already telling me you cannot try and meet me halfway. I have to do it your way. And I know that's not the case for you. I'm speaking generally now. And by the time you blow that up, that's why we have these issues.
I'm not sure I agree. Because the one thing that everybody has, Soluchi, sorry, you were going to say something, so I'll throw it back to you first.
Okay, I just wanted to say, I don't know about other women.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe the other women will help me here. Even if you're not telling me, of course, even we women, we don't tell you everything now. We don't even, so we're not asking for, we don't even tell you everything. There are things we don't tell you.
Hey, say that again. You guys have not been telling us everything. Wait, but we're supposed to tell you everything.
So wait, so this is the point.
Oh my goodness, my YouTubers are going bonkers.
So this is what I'm trying to make. We don't tell you everything. And when I say tell us everything, honestly, I don't think it's possible for someone to tell you everything.
Okay.
We're just saying that even if you're not talking to me, at least let me know that, you know what? So the communication is not, for me, it's not the content, it is communication.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm in a space.
Yeah.
I need time. That's all I need to know. You don't have to tell me what you're going through if you don't want to. I think I have problems. I'm an adult. Right now, there's no lights. It's bothering me. I don't even want to hear what you're going through. So that's my point. I think women just want you. We want you to just talk. And that talk is not the content, but I'm going through I'm going through stuff. Yeah. I'm going through stuff. Give me time.
Yeah.
I don't want to guess. I don't want to second guess. I don't want to know why you have a frown on your face. Why are you not eating your food? Why are you not sleeping? I don't want to be thinking about that because you have communicated with me that this season of my life, something is going on. I am not willing to talk about it right now. I might not be willing to talk about it, but you know what? So just give me time.
And you're honestly telling me that would be enough for you, really?
For Soluchi,
really?
I'm in Nigeria. I don't know where you are. I have problems here.
Like really?
Yeah.
Wait,
Oh,
okay.
So, and it depends on the
Okay.
age.
Can we have some
Let me
other voices
find my
in the
hidden
room?
knife.
Can we have some other voices in the room? So, Yinka, you handed over to Soluchi for a second. So, can you come back with your point now?
Yes.
Yeah, it's very interesting listening to both Shego and Soluchi, because I think somewhere between the two of them is where I see my aspirational answer. Again, I'm not an expert, which is why I say this is what I aspire to, because I think from what Shego says about this is who I am as a fully formed human being, and I say that to you as my spouse. If you as my spouse, going back to what Soluchi is saying, says, I need a bit more openness, I need access, then for me, the aspiration is somewhere in the middle. It's me being able to say that in my fully formedness, to make up a word, I need to understand that this person needs insight into my life journey.
Yes.
So I can't be that fully formed person with this other person. You understand? So I think one of the strongest things about us as human beings, forget male or female, is if we understand that we are on life's journey, and one of the most enriching things is learning. So as I go through, the way I deal with you today should be different to the way I deal with you tomorrow, based on what hand you show me today. So if I've always assumed that you like reggae, and I played reggae all the time when you and I are together, and all of a sudden I play R&B and your eyes light up, that should be a trigger for me to understand that, this person might prefer this thing over the other thing that I assumed. Now, the aspirational bit is basically that I think for men and also for women is that we need to give more than society suggests we give. When it comes to dealing with our spouses specifically, but women in general, because the one thing we will all agree on is that we see the same things differently. So from what I know about women generally, and I've been married for a couple of minutes now, is I think women appreciate the fact that you offer insight into your life as an individual. You offer insight into your soul as a man. And I think women appreciate, and I'm saying all of this now, if I call my wife, she'll probably say exactly what Soluchi is saying, that I'm not giving her insight into my life, which is why I'm calling it aspirational. That is what I aspire to. But from what I've observed, I think women appreciate that. So I'm not coming to you as a fully formed, closed-off man. I'm coming to you as a fully formed, closed-off man, but I'm sharing my journey with you.
Yes.
Now, that for some people might mean me telling you absolutely everything, my fears, my aspirations. And for other people, just me saying that, look, I'm going through things might be enough. And I think that's the secret of life, is finding where we all are on that scale. For some people, they need all of the detail. If you're my wife, you need to know everything. That's why you married me. And for at the other end of the scale, if you're my wife, you might think, well, the fact that you are actually going through something and you've shown me that you're going through something is enough. And I think that's the secret. That is what I aspire to. I can't present myself as an expert.
May I quickly share a YouTube comment about that, just so that the guys who are watching kind of feel involved? And I think Soluchi hit the nail on the head about trying to learn who we are specifically. The person wrote this, and it's a bit funny. He's a married man, I know him. He says, if you tell a woman, I am in need of space, I need time, she goes off. And he literally wrote, with 12 million questions just a short while after. Is it me? What have I done? Etc.
This is part of my concern with all of these conversations. I think what I get usually from men that comment in that sort of way is that they have, they're living with irrational people, or they're living with people who do not have any chill, as they say in modern society. I mean, you assume that this person is going to be instantly triggered by you saying a certain thing to them. Why do you constantly have that assumption?
I have an answer.
The fact that you
I also have an answer, because some people are like that.
Okay. So you get what you give. If you are expecting that, your expectations shall not be cut off.
Not
Well,
necessarily. Not
let the
necessarily.
men answer this because this is what they want to. They want to hear this. Okay, so Yinka first, and then Shagun.
I think the man is right in saying what he said, but I think the solution is exactly what Bolaji said there. That I come back to this thing a lot. I was so interested in the conversation last week with ladies. So ladies, but I think we don't realize how much social assumptions, how strong that hold over all of us is. We don't realize it.
Yeah.
Again, this is what I aspire to. I can't present myself as an expert here, but you see, there is a time for everything.
Yeah, that is.
I know that there is a time I can present something controversial to my wife where she will kick off. And I know there's a time I can present that same topic.
Yeah.
That she'll be more receptive.
Yes.
And I think that is the secret. You have to understand exactly when it is you have to present something. Sometimes it might mean that, I think somebody said, let's go for a walk. And then that will be the time to drop the fact that I've just spent £2,000 on a pair of shoes.
Oh God, I'm not sure there'll be any
Because
time.
these are very comfortable shoes.
I'm not sure there's any time you can present that. If you like, take a walk to the moon.
But I think I say all of, I know there's a lot of us here, so I'll make this really quick. But I think the secret that I've learned, and like I said, I've been married for a long time. I've only learned this in the past 3, 4, 5 years, very, very recently. The secret is knowing when to say what you need to say.
Yes.
And the trick we all miss, and I'm guilty of that, is as soon as I know that this thing that irritates me about my wife, I can see it coming from a mile away, and I will jump on it at the point that I know it's going to make me angry and make her angry. I'm just being honest.
Thank you, Shagun. I'm going to come back to that point, but Shagun, you go first.
I totally agree. Sometimes we just yank chains. I don't know why we do that. And I really don't know. I mean, he's so honest and it's true. I remember very quickly, somebody said, there was a challenge in our marriage and it was recommended I go see a good friend who was a minister. And I immediately thought, you know how we just, what does he want to say? And Emma mentioned it earlier that guys should try and talk to each other and get counsel. But I just think for some reason, there's almost a guard, and I eventually ended up enjoying that time with this person, and it was very helpful. But just to be honest, that sometimes we just don't want it immediately, and I don't know why. And guys need to recognize that if something is wrong and we are looking, and the ladies are looking to you for guidance, you should be open and ready to submit to learning, and that's not taking too much from you. But I just want to add, we all have our pride, and we all have our egos, and whether that is a function of our gender or just being human, to some extent, you have to somewhat factor that in without necessarily accepting it. Is there a difference between accepting and accommodating?
Well, sorry, can I say something? Can I just say something about that? So one of the things I love the most about my living room is this big, massive window, right? Those of you that have been to my house know, what it's like. And it's always so interesting when I see blackbirds, particularly, fly straight into it. And then you can literally see their faces sort of go by the side of the window, as they fall down. And I think sometimes, again, just speaking, what some women tend to do sometimes is that when they notice that that thing is up, they try to fly straight into it, right? And it causes you nothing but pain, because the reaction that you get is not the reaction that you were looking for,
I'm sorry to jump in really quickly. That's a good point, but I don't think it's exclusive to women, because if you go back to the commenter on YouTube, that's exactly what he's saying as well.
Yeah. So let me jump in. I've enjoyed I'm going to have notes, and I'm going to ask all of you questions based on that. And there's something that everyone has said here, which is quite interesting, is know yourself, identity. And for us as human beings, we have something called the E factor. For men, it's ego. For women, it's emotion. And they're not bad. They were put there, they're not bad.
I actually don't agree with that either. Yinka
I
is
don't.
waving frantic.
I
Let
don't
me
agree
use
with
that
that.
too.
Wait. Why don't you agree with it? I want to know why.
See them do it.
Because ego on its
That
own
is
not
ego.
bad. It's not bad. It is when that ego is being driven by something else that not makes it bad.
But okay, can I just respond to this? Because I think one of the things we've been talking about is society is telling us certain things about ourselves that we know deep down is not true.
Yeah.
So when you say ego, ego is what causes two people to argue endlessly. Because if it was just, and you might call it emotion or whatever, but if I have to be right, if we haven't finished our argument,
Yeah.
it's because we both have to be right.
Yeah.
And when we go to emotions as well, the way we express our emotions just differ. But it's still that emotionally, I close myself off from you because when I'm talking to you, your ego is at work. That works both ways. Or emotionally, I unleash on you because when I'm talking to you, your ego is at work. So when society tells us, oh, men are this way and women are that way, we don't know when we buy into what they're saying. But if you sit down, and one of my phrases in life is, God always talks to the person in the room. So when I go and report my husband to God, God says, Toyin, sit down, let me tell you something about yourself. Because when God tells me about myself, he allows me to shape myself into the best person that I need to be in any conversation with my husband, in any conversation, not just with my husband, because also, you know, I'm not talking about husband alone, but just in relationships.
Yeah.
So God talks to the person in the room. So if I assess myself, if I'm coming into, you know, something like, earlier on, I think it was that said about this comedy that she watched, where the woman, oh no, sorry, it was Bola, whoever said that, yeah, Bolaji was, and the woman was laughing. And I thought people will jump on her for laughing, but that may be her own way of dealing with this thing that has just happened. So me, for example, I tell my choir members, I say, when things are going wrong, smile big. Smile. That's not when you need to show your misery on your faces. So when I'm smiling, I'm not actually smiling. I'm crying on the inside. But all I have to do is to express it, is to smile. So again, know yourself and know who you're with. If I'm taking something away from this room today, it's Soluchi's phrase, know the person you are with. When we're working with clients, we get to know our clients before we approach them. When we're talking to our children, we don't deal with our children individually. So it's basically the same. If I know the person I'm with, I adapt myself to get the best out of that discussion. That's, you know, that's, I think I will stop there because I'm
okay. All right. Thank you for that. Another one again that I was going to pick up on, and I'm going to throw this back to everyone, is said issues. Yeah. That, you know, when a man has an issue, you'd like for that man to express it, to at least have a safe and healthy outlet for it. So my question is for the men folks and for the women, to you, it might be an issue. To the man, it's not yet an issue because he's thinking of how to deal with it. He's not sitting down saying, woe is me.
This is me looking for my notepad.
I'm scribbling.
Yeah. So to the women, when is an issue? And then to the man, is it really an issue? Because you don't have an answer yet. Okay. So
MM's got her hand up.
Okay, I had my hand up here. Okay, so I think both ways. I think an issue is when it's affecting communication and the relationship. Okay, so if let me there's one example I always remember. So as I was saying, you know, last week was our 22nd wedding anniversary, but I always describe marriage as the greatest and most beautiful risk or adventure any human can take. It's a risk because you really don't know how. And I find that we're evolving and changing, and it gets better and different every year. The more, I mean, you know, so a lot of things are different. A lot of things that I never thought, like, oh, okay. And then, yeah, and life really hits you with some things sometimes. You don't know how anyone would handle stuff. Okay, so you keep growing and you keep changing. Now, I remember our first year or so of marriage. Well, I mean, we're a bit young, you know how you just got married, you're struggling, and then, I mean, no money in the house. We actually had like no food. It's almost, I mean, if everyone knows where I'm coming from, and then where, you know, there was no food in the house. I was pregnant with our first child and no food. My salary was 8,210 naira, which, so there was no food, no money. And this man is like, he sleeps and he's miserable. And so I started thinking, oh my God, maybe there's something wrong. Maybe I've offended him. What is wrong with him? He doesn't talk, he just sleep. And then, so one night I've said, you know what, what's going on? Are you ill? Are you upset with me? And everything is like, we don't have any money. There's no food. Business is not, you know, so, and he, I mean, he was, and I was thinking so many other things in my head, like, we've only been married for 1 year. Is this how it's going to be, you know? So I'm like, okay, so what do we do about it? So we stayed up one night. I said, you know what, let's talk this through. So what do you think? Okay, if we put this other money aside, okay, would this help? You know, so I mean, but I spent, I think, maybe 3-4 days the night looking at him. I'll wake up the night looking at him like, well, he didn't say a thing. He just hasn't said anything, just comes back, you know. So we've evolved. I mean, those kind of things can't really happen. Oh, I mean, even if they do, what Solitude was saying, sometimes you give space to find the perfect time to talk about some stuff, which I think is fine. I think it's very fine. So I think there's something that Balaji said I wanted to refer to. I think when I put my hand up, you were asking me something. Sorry, Sam, can you go back to what you asked me?
Yeah. So what is that issue? That is an issue.
Yeah. So an issue is when it affects the relationship, when you're coming back barking and screaming at everyone, when you're slamming doors and we're looking at you like, what's going on? You know, what's really going on? You're slamming doors, you're getting angry, some people go crazy and then they start drinking, or I mean, come on, that is major. So we need to know what's going on. Okay, so we don't want you to get to that point where some people trigger and you'll be shocked that is overnight. People who are believers, they just switch and you're like, huh? So yeah, so we don't want you to get to that point where I think everyone needs that one person or that person to be able to talk to. I think communication is very important in life. I've grown to know that it's more and more vital. Things are happening. Sometimes I don't have the solution, but just bouncing off the idea. Sometimes we laugh at ourselves. Okay. Then another thing I wanted to say before Emma Balaji was talking about the wife, you know, losing her mind. Okay. Sometimes, okay. I'll give an example. Men, okay, if you want to tell your wife something like she doesn't look very good in that outfit, or she's put on a bit of weight.
What?
Can I ask you how brave? I'm just trying to say. So you want to tell your wife like, maybe she says, "How do I look, darling, in this outfit?" I don't know how many of you know how to say this stuff or how to say. I mean, would you be like, "I would damn the consequences"? Just go like, "You're fine, darling," or is there a way that you know how to say this thing without causing a whole fight? Okay.
There's no way to that one. The man that asked that question.
Sir.
I don't like you. My wife has just heard you. And she is giving me evil eye.
Oh no.
That is all I have to say on the matter.
So you've got 2 minutes.
I hope you're happy now, MM. You have found the way now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let me I'm going to crush two things in one.
It's a really good question, though.
Yeah, really good question. I want to crush two things in one because of the comments from the YouTuber. Yes, YouTuber. That's the word. Okay. Yes. Anyway, as we're talking, I realized something. I realized that the people listening to us are different ages, at different stages. Some are single, some are younger. And I realized a lot of us are talking from the perspective where we are, right? So I can understand if the guy says, oh, when you tell a woman I need space, she's going to go off. Again, we're back to know yourself, know who you're with, know your journey. Trust me, at 28, 30, you tell me you need space, that space, you enter the garage. You understand? Yeah. So I want us to understand that life is a journey. So understand where you.
Oh God, I think we've lost.
Guys, the network couldn't handle anymore.
We lost Lucci there. So Yinka, were you about to say something? Because I was going to go to Sheg with that also, because
I've got a couple of notes here. How much time have we got left?
Oh, we've got what 16 minutes thereabouts. So.
All right. What I was going to say, I was making these notes, and let me just throw this in really, really quickly. have you noticed how sometimes odd couples last very, very long in relationships? You know, maybe a woman is, you know, really, she's 80 and the man is 35, you know, they've been together for donkey's years. Or, you know, they're from different races or they're from different social backgrounds, whatever, but they seem to last in their relationship a long time. And I think, again, I'm very aspirational in these things, so I can't present myself as an expert. But I think one of the reasons why is the secret, and that's what I'm hoping this conversation will tease out, is you really have to understand where you are on a journey. You know, one of the things that Shegun said, not Shegun, one of the things that Bayo said actually, that really triggered me, and I went, this is that social absolute. You know, when you say men have ego and women have emotion, it almost does that to the exclusion of the other party. And women have ego and men have emotion. So what I think works successfully, to tie those two things together, what I think works successfully is when you, in your individual journey, are very open. And the way I've written this is this. I've written grow. You have to understand that you have to grow in your relationship. And I think MM started to talk about that. You know, the way I was in my relationship when I was married in year 1 is completely different to the way I am in my relationship in year 20-something. And I have to acknowledge that. I have to be willing to change. I could talk about this for days, but I have to be willing to change. One of the problems I create in my relationship, and I'm not going to throw that out to my wife, one of the problems I create in my relationship is my inability to change. Because I know what my wife wants, but I'm not willing to change to accommodate that. And funny enough, the last thing I will say is I have to learn to be adaptable.
Yeah.
Because one of the things we miss is that you go into a relationship as two completely different human beings, two completely fully formed human beings. And the lifetime of that relationship that you have, whether it's for 1 minute or whether it's for 100 years, is actually a journey of adaptability.
Yeah.
So I like fried fish, but my wife can only cook fish. I have to learn that, she has to learn how to fry fish, but I have to learn to enjoy cooked fish. And I shouldn't be upset at her, because if I'd done my homework before I married her, I knew she didn't know how to fry fish. Now, it's a very simple, very basic example, but I hope you get my point.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that.
There are sighs in the room of agreement.
Yeah, this is what I've been saying. This is what I've been saying from the beginning. Is what we discussed earlier about Adam and Eve. What Suluchi and I started talking about. You have to grow, and you have to recognize there's a place for growth. And I like it when that growth is called change. You know, the testimony of the gospel is change. You know you received the word that transforms you when you yourself are changing.
Yes.
And if you are honest to yourself, you make the best decisions per time. Meaning, I will make the best decision today based on all the information I have today. But I should be able to recognize that 10 years from now, I could make a better decision with more information. And if we're honest enough in our relationships, both as men and women, married or single, you should be able to be humble enough to say, I'm growing, I'm changing, and I'm learning. But I realize that that simple thing takes a humility and it takes a grace, if we're being very honest.
Okay, so Soluchi, you were saying.
Yes. So you see what I'm talking about? I have grown people problems. I have like 3 networks, and I don't have lights. I have problems. You know, I have like 5 SIM. I have 5 networks here, so I have problems. So I think we just have to realize that we are different at different stages. I think I caught where I don't know who was talking about you know, how he was in his first stage of a relationship and all of that. So when you understand that, I think we have to start being a little more selfless in relating with people. And I'm so careful to say this because it almost looks as if we're talking about just marriage. It's not just about marriage. Even at work, even with your friends, you have to realize I am in this space and this person is in that space. Understand everybody's space and deal with them within their space if you want to, because it's a choice. Unfortunately, when you are married, we have a choice.
Soluchi,
No
I was
choice.
about to say that again. Is this still a choice in marriage in terms of, I know it sounds like it shouldn't be a choice, but is that why people feel
Honestly, it somehow, let
you
me
get what
be
I mean?
honest, it
You
shouldn't
get what
be
I mean, right?
yes, I know what you mean. Honestly, it should still be a choice, even when you're married. It should. But you know, and someone was saying it, we are conditioned. We don't know how much conditioning has gone on with us. Society, we are so conditioned. The way we think, the way you should act, you should be like this, you should be like, that's what I'm saying. At a certain age and time, I need space will not be a problem. If you tell me now, I'll even tell you, in fact, you know what? I do need bigger space. Right now in my life, I feel that every married person should have like one home that after a while they go to. You tell your husband, this week I'm going to that home. Don't come
But
here.
I was about to say that, Soluchi, if I tell my wife, honey, I think I need to go to the Bahamas for a week, I need some space.
That's what I'm saying.
The Bahamas might be
Bolaji is laughing. Bolaji is laughing. And Bahamas, we have a guest room.
Exactly. So how many women will interpret that as, all right, you know, he's dealing with stuff, he's growing, he's changing, and he can grow and change without me. Because I too need to grow and change. How many of us are saying that to ourselves, man?
That, you know,
I need to grow and change. And that I can only be good to you when I'm the best version of myself. And sometimes being the best version of myself does not include you. The problem is that we expect...
Chai, hold it.
Why now?
Hold it. What you say? I don't want to be the one receiving calls after this. I'll forward them to
Well,
you.
seriously. But that's what I'm saying. It depends on the stage and age you are in your life. Because we expect everything from one person. That is a horrible expectation. If that person was jollof rice, the person would be making himself happy. Why would he be sad? One person cannot give you what you need. It's not possible. But we have these expectations in marriage. You should make me happy. Am I cartoon? Am I Tom and Jerry? How Tom and Jerry makes me feel is different from how you make me feel. If you
do you watch Tom and Jerry?
I do.
And see what happened on Tom and Jerry?
Yeah, that's not young.
Tom and
Because
Jerry.
I understand. So if my husband needs space, he's going through some so you know, the Lord be with you, receive the anointing to, you know, God will help you. I put on my Tom and Jerry. I want to live long. I want to live long. So, but I understand that everybody is not in that space in their journey. And
I'm sorry to cut it again, but I'm getting YouTubers all over the place. But I want to say something. You say you want to live long. It's good. Do we sometimes do good things that harm us? You know, in the bit of trying to nurture the relationship, do we secretly feel harmed? And this is being very honest now. I know we have honest people on this panel. Yes,
Inka.
The short answer is, again, it comes back to your perspective on how you're handling your relationship. Yeah? For me, that is not, I'm not harming myself. If I feel that there's something that my wife and I need to talk about that is very important, but very volatile, I have to pick my moment as to when to introduce that thing. Because we are both going to be on edge anyway. And it might mean that during the course of that discussion, I have to lose, in quotes, okay? Because that is the best thing for the moment. But the good thing about a relationship is you will pick it up later.
You're absolutely right.
And then you come back and say, you know, that thing that we spoke about last week when I agreed with you, I actually do think that is right, but you pick it up. And hopefully, and again, this is why I come back to this whole thing about you are adaptable as you're going through life. That, okay, the reason why I said it this way at that time was because I actually do think when you say this and you agree with this, I think you are right. But this is my perspective. I'm not saying you are wrong, but this is my angle on it. And hopefully, because you're having a lifetime conversation now, we're talking specifically in the context of marriage here, but this is life generally.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to take that hit. And you have to be mature enough in that relationship to say that, look, I will take that hit now because, okay, I'm going to be talking to Shegun next week. And you know what? I'll pick it up with Shegun next week now. For now, it is more important that at least we agree, we have some kind of agreement so that we can pick it up next week and continue the conversation.
Okay.
I like that. I like that, actually. I've learned from that.
Did we answer Shegu's question?
Wait, hold on. I don't know the question. We'll come back to that. We've got 5 minutes to go. And
oh, wow.
It looks like we're now just going in. So far, we've been scratching the surface and setting the back.
Yeah.
I really don't know if you were speaking prophetically where you said you will speak more, catch up with Segun next week again. But, you know, there's something I'm going to ask. And Segun asked that question, that do we do ourselves harm in doing good?
It's a very important question.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying.
That was my
Very
long
important.
answer. My long answer was no, we don't. In the context of a relationship that is healthy, you don't.
Yeah.
Because if you consider that to be harm, then you need to rethink that relationship.
Okay, all right. Bolaji, your hand has been going up.
Yeah, because I've almost felt like I was a spectator watching it on YouTube for some time now. I wanted to say something about this where we create issues for ourselves. Somebody mentioned going to a beach home or whatever, you know, just absolutely, or somewhere to get some space or somewhere in your head. Sometimes you create an issue with that because in that beach home, there may be a bartender or a person who can serve as a substitute for that person.
When I have problems,
you should be.
Wait
a minute. You will be shocked what happens.
Actually.
Yeah, when people find themselves in a space that
where they're vulnerable.
That they're vulnerable. That they're meant to be using to recover or heal from something. You find that they're most vulnerable. In fact, that is the worst time for them to be in a separate space, especially to their spouse. So that what you said about creating issues, there's a possibility that going back into the word, actually, going back to the Bible, I feel like every time I think about myself as an individual, I know that when my husband first married me, my head was hot like fire. My brother is here, he can tell you. Yeah. I was just like that, you know. I was always ready for an argument, not confrontation, but argument. I could argue my point. I read a lot, or I read a lot. So I always had like the academic perspective, the social perspective, the everyday perspective. So you didn't want to go into it with me, right? But I realized that I needed to grow in Christ first as an individual. I felt my journey it was up to me to allow Christ to work in me so that I can be fused properly with my husband. Because you know how they say that, you know, God is the only third person in the relationship, in marriage. I believe that through and through. Because if I were to bring Bolaji to this marriage, in Bolaji's true form, without Christ in me, we won't still be married today. And we've been married for 16 years. So again, I feel the Christ factor is so important for us as Christians. We need to really go back to the word and let it transform us. It says by the renewing of your mind, and your mind influences your actions, doesn't it?
Yes.
So once you're working on that, God then he smooths out the rest. Spiritual. I know that I'm a living, walking, breathing testimony of that.
Thank you,
sorry,
okay, we literally have 1 minute.
1 minute left.
We have 1 minute.
30 seconds. I'll say this in 30 seconds.
I have a question that's going to take 5 seconds.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Here comes the bomb.
Okay.
Here comes the bomb.
Yes, this is the bombshell.
Yep.
Can we talk about submission next week?
Oh,
There you go.
Hello. Hello.
okay, so that's the 5-second
Yes.
question. Saluchi, what's your 30 seconds?
30 seconds.
Yeah.
We are back to man, know thyself. And when self-awareness, when you know yourself, you're able to relate with others. Because even in saying, I want to get to a beach home, some person, if you are me, sometimes I would like to take you along, but be silent. It depends. There's no one size fits all. It depends. Know yourself and know who you're with. And yes, Shegun, I believe sometimes we do ourselves harm in trying to do good. A lot of people are not themselves in relationship. Thank you. Next week.
So guys, this has been an awesome time. This is, oh my goodness. We have to continue next week. So yes, we will pick up on that point.
Submission. Submission. I want it.
But it's been so good. So
Yes.
good. I've learned so much. So I want to say thank you to everyone on this panel. Please come back next week. Don't put your phones on silent next week when we're talking about submission, ladies.
No.
And guys, okay, we'll be ready for you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.